What keeps you awake at night?
Sea levels are rising globally.
Fears fueled by horror stories.
Among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous.
Another series of deadly terror attacks.
I don't want to be blamed if you cannot get to sleep tonight.
Welcome to Things That Keep Me Up at Night. I'm Olivia.
I am Brooke.
I'm Bree.
Oh, and today we are starting a new series, and it has taken so much out of me.
We've been hearing about this for weeks now. She's not doing well, folks.
Yeah, but not hearing about it because, again, we don't know the topics of the podcast, right? It's just been, like, text of her screaming or just, like, her just, like, texting about, you guys need to listen to a good video or listen to something pleasant before we start recording today, because it's going to be a lot. So I'm excited for it, personally.
Oh, man, it's rough. I've been reading court documents and excerpts for, like, a week. So I finally finished this, like, 75-page collection of, like, personal statements and quotes made by the companies involved,
Dude.
like, Wednesday. And, like, fuck, dude, It's rough, so let's get right into it. Today,
All right.
I'm talking about The Cover-Up, because our series for the next 3 episodes is Cover-Ups and Conspiracies. Mm-hmm. The Cover-Up by the cigarette companies that cigarettes are not bad for us. It's a doozy, boys.
God.
It's rough.
Did Matt help you with this?
No. Because we realized very quickly that we disagree about corporate greed. Yeah, I was very depressed and very sad, and he was in the stance of like, well, you know, there's not a lot that we can do about it now, and every company does a certain amount of, like, fucked up things in order to make money. How much of it are we in control of? And I'm like, that doesn't make me less sad.
Yeah, like, that's worse. It's worse that we have no control over it.
I know. Matt's a different one. He's a lot of patience.
We love Matt. Shout out to Matt.
Shout out to Matt.
Thanks for texting me about my audio quality, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man. Matt should just become, like, a signature off-screen character, I guess off-record character.
Just like Matt shit-talked me this week about my audio quality. Always there, always helping the podcast.
Good guy.
So, it all starts in 4000 BCE in South America.
A long time ago.
Is it when tobacco was discovered? Jesus.
This is when tobacco probably originated. Obviously, it was, like, selectively bred over time, but, like, the most recognizable form of tobacco originated in South America in 4000 BCE.
Isn't nicotine, like, a poison that plants develop?
We're gonna get into this, buddy. Oh, man, you have no idea how deep this goes.
Okay.
So, originally, the leaves were smoked for shamanistic rituals. When Europeans arrived, natives presented them with the leaves because it was really important to their culture. But because of the language barrier, Europeans thought, oh, cool, leaves. And so they dumped most of them. An avocado. So they dumped most of them overboard, but like a small group of sailors actually listened to the natives. A rare occurrence.
I know.
And they told them you had to smoke it, and of course it's really addictive. It feels really good. It's euphoric. So they liked it and they brought it back over. And very, very quickly, it became a popular commodity because it was really exotic and mystical. It also had claims of medicinal properties.
Of course it did.
Of course. And so, I can't understate how important tobacco was, during this time period. So to put into perspective, when the U.S. took out loans to pay for the Revolutionary War, they actually used the U.S. tobacco crop as collateral. Right? That's insane to me, right? So, actually, contrary to popular belief, cigarettes were the least used method of consuming tobacco. Snuff was the most popular, which is you take ground tobacco and you inhale it in your nose.
That makes sense,
Followed by chewing tobacco, pipe smoking, cigars, and then cigarettes. So this had to do with, hand rolling a cigarette was like, it took a lot of time, not a ton of time, but like compared to like just putting it in a pipe or chewing it.
Right, of course.
Some extra time. Additionally, if you bought like pre-rolled cigarettes, 4 to 5 cigarettes could be rolled per minute by hand in factories. So they're kind of expensive. But in 1880, the first mass market cigarette rolling machine was invented by James Bosnack. Shout out to Bosnack.
Thanks, buddy.
Who knows? And so that upped the 4 to 5 cigarettes per minute to 210 cigarettes per minute.
Woo.
Wait, but you were telling me that they were rolling a cigarette every 15 seconds by hand?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
It's a good time.
Pretty good for them, right?
Yeah.
But now the machines are taking over, so they're really increasing the supply.
They're taking our jobs.
That reminds me of that scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, no, the second one where they're like putting the caps on toothpaste.
Oh,
Essentially
the nightmarish fever dream one?
Yes,
No,
absolutely.
The one with Johnny Depp.
Right.
It's the worst one. But the dad loses his job at the toothpaste factory and he steals the toothpaste cap so his son can build a model of the chocolate factory in his own home.
I really wish that there was a positive story like that in here, but there's not.
It's just people losing their jobs.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to the kids, because that's going to happen.
Of course. It always does.
It always does.
Things really picked up during World War II. World War I. Essentially, they put tobacco in your war rations. The loose ones, for like pipes, because that was one of the most popular methods of smoking. But there were 2 disadvantages to smoking pipes. One, there weren't additives in tobacco at the time to keep it constantly lit, so you had to relight the tobacco throughout the smoking process with a pipe. Versus a cigarette, you can light it once and smoke the whole thing.
Oh no, I have to relight my pipe. What a disaster. That's like
Well, see,
3 seconds.
Well, when you relight it, you could give away your position, because
And
light
also-
war.
Oh, specifically in
Yeah. Right, so
Also,
that
you
was
gotta
an
think
advantage.
about-
Was one light.
Right. Also, you got to think about the fact that the use of materials like matches and fire is valuable.
Yeah, super valuable. Also, the other one was, worst comes to worst, you have to put it out. You can just throw away a cigarette versus, putting out a pipe.
You gotta carry that thing around, for sure.
Right. So, additionally for women, because smoking was traditionally considered unladylike, during this period, you have the flappers, you have women going to work in factories, you have the suffrage movement, which basically revolutionized femininity in a way where smoking was opened up to them. Because it was masculine, now women could smoke. And so advertisers began targeting women.
Yeah, I'll be
We're gonna
honest,
talk about that.
those cigarette holders from the 20s, very stylish.
Very fucking cool.
Very cool.
Very
I want
cool.
10 of them. Even if I don't
I don't smoke, but I want them. So
I can. Know what I can do is I can put one of those Trader Joe's Cheetos at the end of one, and then just hold it there, and then eat the Cheeto with it. Is that how it works?
I'm gonna ignore that.
I love it.
So, this is where things are gonna get meaty, and I'm gonna let you know, ladies, we are 1 pages into an 11-page paper.
You said 9.
I had to increase it, okay?
Well, she added to it, apparently.
Okay, so it begins in 1602.
Good.
Lung problems were discovered in chimney sweeps who were exposed to smoke and tobacco. Now, at the time, people argued, okay, well, they're exposed to a lot of smoke, so that doesn't necessarily have to do with cigarettes, right? But there is a link between smoke exposure and lung issues.
Sure.
Next development was 1795. Samuel Thomas observed an increase in lip cancer in pipe smokers. Again, you could argue it was anecdotal. So in 1798, U.S. physician Benjamin Rush wrote on the medical dangers of tobacco. And then it isn't until several decades later, in 1826, pure nicotine was isolated from tobacco, right? About a decade later from there, in 1836, New Englander Samuel Green identified nicotine as a natural insecticide, which Brooke previously said, and said, and I quote, "It could kill a man."
Good
Cool.
stuff. Really good stuff.
In 1900, the infamous guinea pig experiment was performed, where they took the tar from, like, tobacco juice, essentially, and they painted it on the backs of guinea pigs, and pretty much all the guinea pigs developed tumors and cancerous lesions.
I had
where
no
they-
idea that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, 1900. I wanna emphasize that 1900, right? Interesting. So by the 1920s, the first medical link between tobacco and cancer emerges, but newspapers refuse to publish it because they don't want to upset cigarette companies who buy a shitload of ad space.
Sure.
By 1945, companies began fighting science with ad campaigns, such as the infamous advertisement that read, "More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette." There's literally no evidence to show this. It was just a blanket claim they made, right?
Sure.
But it left an impression on the public. So eventually, from the 1950s to the 1960s, a series of medical reports confirmed the link between tobacco and cancer. So some examples were done confirming the guinea pig experiment with a variety of other animals, epidemiological data between, like, smokers and diseases, and, like, other studies with the tar in cigarettes. So in response to all the comments about the tar, because they've noticed that the tar, which is generally containing the nicotine, is largely cancer-causing, the companies add filters to the cigarettes, which we're familiar with in modern cigarettes, to quote-unquote move the tar. Kind of want to make a side note that they were originally made with asbestos, but whatever. Filters.
Are you fucking serious?
I'm 100% serious.
You won't get lip cancer, kids, but you'll definitely get mesothelioma.
Oh my god, I love it. All right. Pretty soon, lawsuits against private companies were filed for negligent manufacture, negligent advertising, fraud, and violation of various state consumer protection statutes.
That's fair.
A lot of this is, like, all of the claims they were making in their advertisements were, like, literally completely unsubstantiated. Like, more doctors smoke Camels.
People used to
every
say
other
that it was, like,
cigarette brand
healthy, right?
Yeah, they were saying it's healthy, it's safe, it's non-irritating, like, no substantiated claims. So they got hit really, really hard by the FTC, and so in the future they were way more careful with their advertised claims.
Hey, remember when the
quickly-
Flintstones used to do advertisements for Marlboro or something?
Marlboro, yeah, I've got to figure out how to fucking pronounce that in this podcast.
Well,
but yeah.
I also remember I used to, like, start that over. I used to religiously watch I Love Lucy when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And, oh my god, the amount of cigarette advertising in I Love Lucy alone. I think it was, don't quote me on this fact, but I think there was a rumor that, like, Lucille Ball didn't originally smoke cigarettes. But Desi Arnaz was brought up with an offer to do, like, advertisements for cigarette companies in their show. So Desi Arnaz started Lucille Ball to smoke cigarettes during the show throughout I Love Lucy. And then she eventually died of lung cancer, I believe.
Oof.
Dope!
Well, that's wonderful.
I might have to fact check on that. Hold on. But I believe that's what it is.
So quickly, while she does that, quickly, in light of mounting evidence and lawsuits, the Tobacco Industry Research Committee was founded with their intention to, and I quote, research the medical effects of tobacco, but their real purpose was to delegitimize scientific studies that painted tobacco in a negative light and release research in support of tobacco smoking.
Go figure.
So
Okay,
this
so
company...
pause. Sorry. She didn't die of lung cancer. She died of a heart-related issue. I don't know why I got lung cancer. Was it Desi Arnaz?
To be fair, heart disease is the result of smoking as well.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
it
cool.
can be.
Sick.
So, we'll talk about that. Don't worry. We'll get there.
All in good time.
So the company was actually founded in 1954 and was, like, hastily put together by a couple of cigarette companies and a PR firm called Hill and Knowlton. And after a series of meetings, they resolved to make this Tobacco Industry Research Committee with the three purposes of, one, using the TIRC to address claims of negligence by the companies and to create a plan of action to prove that cigarettes were safe. Two, all companies fund and signed a frank statement that basically said that all cancer research claims were unsubstantiated, that these companies cared for their customers, and that money would be spent to look into it. These were run as full-page ads across the U.S. And then later, Hill and Knowlton would be responsible for market research and PR, which eventually turned to the responsibility of the later founded Tobacco Institute. So I have a sample from a Frank statement signed in 1954, and it reads as follows. Distinguished authorities point out, 1, that medical research of recent years indicates many possible causes of lung cancer. 2, there is no agreement among authorities regarding what the cause is. 3, that there is no proof that cigarette smoking is one of the causes. 4, that statistics purporting to link smoking with the diseases could apply with equal force to any one of many other aspects of modern life. Indeed, the validity of these statements themselves are questioned by numerous scientists. So just a lot of blame displacement and like putting up into the air like the validity of all of these research studies.
Yeah, wow.
The reason they were so aggressive about fighting this research is because they themselves were funding studies researching cancer and smoking, and they were finding that there was a causal relationship between cigarette smoking and cancer. So they had their hands on the data, and their scientists were confirming the results of these independently researched studies. The scientists felt it was really important to disclose this information to the public in hopes of the research being able to lead to possible solutions. But they were also trying to push the data in hopes of creating safe cigarettes, because at the time they were hoping they would be able to make cigarettes free of the carcinogens that they would be able to identify, which the companies weren't against, because from a marketing standpoint, they would be the first company to find safe cigarettes, right?
Yeah, that
Big
would be
hold in the
a
market.
billion-dollar market.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So they were really stoked about that, and they were trying to research it. Now, I also want to say, while those studies were being funded for safe cigarettes, by the 1960s, more and more information was coming out about the addictive nature of nicotine. So internally, companies were fully aware of the addictiveness of nicotine and prided themselves in it. I found numerous quotes where they refer to themselves in the business of nicotine, not the business of smoking, because they know how addictive nicotine is.
Sure.
But publicly, they would argue and make like very firm statements that nicotine was only added for flavor.
Yeah, I knew someone who, in his lifetime, was addicted to several things. One of the more important ones being meth. And he said that he dropped meth overnight, but quitting cigarettes was the hardest thing he ever did.
Yeah, they actually compare the addictive nature of nicotine in later studies to like cocaine and heroin. And this also might have to do with as early as 1964, they began adding ammonia to cigarettes because it makes the nicotine more potent. Essentially, it frees up the nicotine and makes it more of it available to penetrate the lung tissue and get into the blood.
Like,
And I believe
so
it
at this
takes-
point, we don't care about the safety of cigarettes. We're just going to start adding whatever fucking chemical we need to make it more addictive.
Right. So, thank God, finally some legislation gets passed. On January 11th of 1964, the U.S. Surgeon General declares smoking a health hazard. Dope. Long time coming. This is literally a decade later from the 50s when all this
God.
shit was coming out.
Sure.
But again, stuff started coming out in 1900, so I'm a little...
Yeah.
I'm a little annoyed. So in response to the Surgeon General's warning, one of the largest cigarette companies had this to say: "We don't accept the idea that there are harmful agents in tobacco." Philip Morris, 1964.
Well, too fucking bad, Philip Morris.
You know what? No, guys. We don't accept it, all right?
We just...
Fake news.
You can put
It's
your
fake
numbers,
news.
your science, your facts in front of me, but
Oh,
you know what?
God.
At the end of the day, I don't align with it. And I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
you here don't align with it.
I can't read all of a
seriously.
sudden.
Seriously, that is all they had to say. That was their statement.
That's incredible.
So-
and I
This
think that's
sign
just like,
won't stop me because I can't read.
you know what, though, to touch on that a little bit, though, like, getting deeper into this, I guess, I would be in a huge form of denial if that type of stuff came out and I was the CEO of that company, where it was actually harming people, my product was like, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, that's kind
You
of
have
bullshit.
the evidence.
No,
You have
I'm
the
sorry.
evidence in
Like,
front of you.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just like, I mean, I understand it's all for financial gain. I understand
Okay.
that.
well, yeah, that's
So,
the
like-
thing. Is it's like, if I, as I am right now, were making a product that was actively hurting people, then I would just stop. But like, these are people who their entire life is warped around making
Hurting
more
people.
money.
But would you stop if you suddenly became in the top 1% of your community?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that, like, it's like a completely different species. Like, billionaires, like, there's no logic there. It's just, I need to accumulate more wealth by whatever means necessary. Fuck everybody who's getting hurt.
Yeah.
You know? And like, yeah, it's just insane. And, like, you can't argue with that mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to sit down the CEO of fucking Camel, they'd be like, I'm doing everything right, and they'd believe it. Because they have to.
I don't know if they'll believe it, but we'll get into that.
Okay. Also, Bree, are you in a war zone? Alright. Good enough.
You know, I can only do so much. I have brought my ass down in the basement. I am sitting on a cold floor with spidey webs around me.
Spidey webs.
Trying not to have an anxiety attack. Covered in a blanket with a pillow, 2 forts, and an ice cooler with my computer propped up on it. And I get asked if I'm in a war zone. Fuck yourself.
Kind of wonder what the sound is. That's all.
It's my roommates walking above me.
Oh, okay. Thanks. That's all I needed. Okay.
I love you, Brick. I didn't mean it to be an attack. Genuinely, okay.
Anyway,
We were just playing a game. We were doing it back and
It was a
forth.
bit.
Okay.
January 1st, 1965, it was ruled that tobacco companies would have to label all their tobacco products. However, the first part of this is SS59, which was introduced by Senator Warren G. Magnuson, required that cigarette companies labeled their products with warning: continual cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. So notice that continual cigarette smoking maybe.
Do they have a guy like standing there like giving a
Shrugging?
sarcastic face, doing air quotes, rubbing his chin?
Maybe. However, lobbyists argued it would scare customers if they put out public health warnings. So in the next iteration of the bill, H3014, which was introduced by Walter Rogers, it barred the FTC and other health organizations from intervening with labeling and putting out public statements. And it also ensured that they got that warning, right? So essentially, they put the responsibility of labeling and warning the public into the hand of the cigarette companies.
Fuck you, Warren.
This is the Federal Cigarette Labeling and Advertising Act, and it was passed and signed by Lyndon B. Johnson in July 27th of 1965. So, things are picking up after this. At this point, now that there's legislative action, cigarette companies are really picking up with their legislative action. Functioning on the motto, research the disease, not the tobacco, essentially claiming that we don't understand lung cancer enough to blame tobacco. And so, of course, they are turning to their only saving grace, which is advertising. Tobacco companies proceed to spend millions of dollars to mislead the public with advertising that suggests tobacco doesn't cause cancer, putting into question all the scientific studies that do, and their end goal is really to confuse the public to not know what to believe. And so, as a result, in 1969, there's an update, so that's 4 years later from the initial bill, an update to the bill made to the previous legislation on the cigarette labeling called the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act. So they amended the law, and instead the new warning says, warning, the Surgeon General has determined that cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health.
Good.
Super clear difference.
Yep.
But this is another big turning point because they've kind of dug themselves into a hole, and they know they've dug themselves into a hole. So in 1970, R.J. Reynolds shut down a research facility that they had nicknamed the Mouse House. Basically, they just had like a ton of rodents that they were testing on. But the scientists at the time felt they were collecting really valuable research on the relationship between emphysema and smoking. And so as a result, because the lawyers felt that the collection of this data would be of detriment to the country, they gathered all 26 scientists and abruptly fired them and terminated the project. Additionally, it was during this time period that companies realized that there is no possible way they would be able to do a safe cigarette, because inherently inhaling burnt plant debris, it's not safe. It has carbon monoxide in it and everything. So they terminated the programs to find a safe cigarette. Additionally, because lawyers felt if they ever did find a safe cigarette and they released it, they would be implying that the other cigarettes were not safe. So they didn't
just the existence of that program already implies that, but
they
whatever.
Knew. Yeah. Well, no, the public didn't know that they were researching that. This is
all the research, the science behind it kind of shows. Well,
like,
that
to also
it's
keep
not
in mind,
safe.
like, this is all secret information. This is
all
not available to the public.
Sure.
None of this information is available until 1998.
Are you fucking serious?
Yes. So nobody knows that this is happening. A lot of what I'm citing right now is like genuinely all released 96, 98.
Holy crap. That's insane.
Yes. So, I'm summarizing a lot of it because I have primary resources of what they said. I just don't have the time to read them all. I just picked the most damning ones. So internally, there was a lot of backpedaling happening. As people were realizing that the evidence was piling up against them, their current PR plans seemed to be doing very little. But the public statements, while they're realizing this in private, the public statements say, "It is our opinion that the repeated assertion without conclusive proof the cigarettes cause disease, however well-intentioned, constitutes a disservice to the public." Brown and Williamson, 1971.
Oh my god.
So they were using this argument that they had to protect smokers' rights and like the right to choose to smoke.
That was never the problem. The problem was never the right to choose.
That was their argument. Their argument was that these laws were infringing on the right of choice.
No.
I also keep forgetting. Philip Morris, I believe, is in charge of Camel, and RJ is in charge of Marlboro, I think. Marlboro. Okay, so Philip Morris also argued in public that while they may have found compounds in cigarettes that are individually cancerous, they argue that a high enough dose, anything can be cancerous. So, like, a lot of smoke and mirrors shit. Right? Which is technically true. Like, from a scientific standpoint, that is technically true.
I mean,
but you're inhaling it, you know? It's...
But I mean,
okay, so this one's gonna make you mad. So here's a secret memo from the British American Tobacco Company in 1980. Right?
Secret memos, never good.
Never good.
Never good.
The company's position on causation is simply not believed by the overwhelming majority of independent observers, scientists, and doctors. The industry is unable to argue satisfactorily for its own continued existence, because all arguments eventually lead back to the primary issue of causation, and at this point our position is unacceptable. Our position on causation, which we have maintained for some 20 years in order to defend our industry, is in danger of becoming the very factor which inhibits our long-term viability. On balance, it is the opinion of this department that we should now move to position B, namely that we acknowledge the probability that smoking is harmful to a small percentage of heavy smokers. By giving a little, we may gain a lot. By giving nothing, we stand to lose everything. BAT 1980.
Holy shit.
They're fully aware that this is not working. And they're fully aware that continuing to deny it is not going to go well for them. Right? Additionally, as data were released, the argument that nicotine was merely flavoring just isn't holding up anymore, right? There's more evidence to show that it's addictive.
Right.
And the cigarette companies all knew that it was addictive. Like, all of them denied in public that nicotine was addictive, but they all knew. And nicotine addiction at this time was compared to heroin and cocaine with the evidence that we had. And then privately, they knew that their argument for protecting the rights of smokers was breaking down, because one could make the argument, how do you have the right to choose to smoke if you can't choose to quit, right? Because it's an addiction. They've said that in memos. As for the development of safe cigarettes, you remember how I said they put filters on stuff?
Sure.
Remember that?
I do.
So the companies now have found, and again, this is all internal research that they're funding and they have their hands on.
Have they removed the asbestos from the filters at this point?
Yes, they did. Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
But what they did find is that the filters do next to nothing, and in tests, the filters actually deliver just as much, if not more, tar than regular cigarettes.
Well, obviously. Because, like, all the filters are doing is stopping the actual, like, tobacco leaves or the product in the cigarette from, like, entering your mouth, right?
But not the air, not the smoke.
But not the air, which has the chemicals and the toxins in it. You're a dumbass.
Yeah, so
you're a dumbass.
The marketing,
I'm so sorry. I'm not calling anybody who smokes cigarettes dumbasses. What I'm saying is, like, the science behind it, the logic.
The marketing made it seem like that was the smarter choice. Like, well, if at least it has a filter, so people were buying the filtered ones thinking that they were making a healthier choice, because that's how it was marketed to them, right?
But, what I'm saying is, and obviously I'm sure that it was advertised a different way, and obviously if you're not exposed to that information, then there's no way to know, right? Because it's a new thing. I can say it with 20/20 vision, right? But, like... Yeah.
Well, this part's gonna make you really fucking pissed, because this part made me really mad. So since the 1960s, companies have been experimenting with lower nicotine levels, right? Because tar and nicotine levels are very closely tied. So every time they would reduce the tar levels, they'd reduce the nicotine levels. Sure. And in internal memos and notes, they were very worried that if they reduced the nicotine levels low enough, it would wean people off of smoking. They knew this since the 60s, right? Obviously, that's not good for business. But they found the opposite is true. So when they released low tar cigarettes, which had lower dose of nicotine, they actually found that, again, people who are smoking are addicts. People who are smoking to maintain constant nicotine levels. So they buy low tar cigarettes, which had lower nicotine levels.
Oh my God,
and they would smoke more cigarettes to compensate for the nicotine levels. And they knew that. I forget what the specific name, I think it's compensatory smoking, something like that. Yeah. It was well documented in the 80s. They were fully aware that this was the effect of low tar cigarettes, but it wasn't bad for business because people were buying more cigarettes.
Sure. Oh my God.
They weren't super upset. So in 1982, the Surgeon General declares that secondhand smoking can cause cancer, which is a massive blow to the face, because for a long time they're protecting smokers who make the conscious choice to smoke. Right. Now they have the issue that people who don't smoke are also at risk. And it's very hard to argue freedom of choice when now other people are being affected. Right. So the response to this was they funded and found pro-smoking groups under the guise of protecting the smokers' rights and freedom of choice, right? These groups are responsible for lobbying and preventing laws from being passed to protect people from secondhand smoking. So I believe in the state of California, there was a law at the time in the 80s to prevent smoking indoors to protect people, and these lobbying groups struck down that law from happening at the time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it went through now. That's now illegal, but very effective in preventing laws like this from being passed. In 1988, Philip Morris, which is a company, I just want to clarify, Philip Morris is a company. They're in charge of Camel and a couple of other brands. So they recruited European scientists. They're not working in the US to do this. European scientists they called white coats, explicitly to provide data that reverse the misconception that secondhand smoke causes cancer and to restore smoking confidence was their term. While at the same time that they're doing this, they're making public statements that there is no evidence that smoking is a risk to non-smokers, even though they, again, as they have literally every single time, have the evidence and the documents in their hands that it's a risk. So,
yikes.
Big yikes. Legislation happens again. Big yay. I'm sure we're all thrilled about this. So 1989 with the Comprehensive Smoking Education Act. This is the one that adds the Surgeon General's warnings that we're familiar with. So the Surgeon General's warnings: smoking causes lung cancer, heart disease, emphysema, may complicate pregnancy. Warnings about pregnant women smoking: it results in fetal injury, premature birth, low birth rate. Warning that it contains carbon monoxide. And then saying quitting smoking now greatly reduces serious risks to your health. And they'd print these like for 4 months, and then they'd switch them. So like constantly you're seeing new warnings when you're buying cigarettes. So that was the newest one that they had as far as like advertising that it's not good for you.
Right.
Annually, the companies now must release a list of ingredients to a confidential agent, but not release them to the public. They weren't legally required to release to the public what they're putting in cigarettes. Again, their argument...
That seems bad.
Seems bad. Their argument is that it would scare people.
What the fuck?
So they didn't want to release it.
That's enough. That should be enough for the public to go,
I can't even do
pretty
a bit
scary.
about this, though. I can't do
Isn't
a bit
this
about
so
this.
fucked?
It's a bit in itself. Like, I can't make
so
jokes.
Yeah,
fucked.
you can't satirize this. This is insane.
And because we're about to get to the kids, so this is our time to make
not
comments.
the kids.
Always the kids.
No.
And this is just like while I'm reading all this, you're just like, how the fuck is this happening? Like 1989, we're nearly 40 years from when we first showed conclusive evidence that it caused cancer, and we're finally saying on the packaging that it's causing cancer. And we're not even releasing the ingredients because they have so much money, so much lobbying power. That they're
1989
not
was
being
20
punished.
years ago.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And that's it. That's all it takes is you
Or
just
sorry,
have tons
30
of
years
money and you can
Tons of money.
You can sway the country in whatever direction you want. Just
Are we
insane.
ready for the kids?
No. Go
Everybody
ahead.
hates the kids. So, everyone's favorite part of my episodes, the kids.
It's always the kids.
So as early as, again, 1957, it is documented that companies were interested in capitalizing on the youth market. One of the first attempts to do so was the Marlboro Cowboy, which was intended to... Sorry, I'm about to get really mad during this section. It was intended on impressing upon young boys to smoke using the quintessential embodiment of masculinity. But wait, guys, you might be thinking, but what about women? Don't worry, they targeted women too.
Don't worry.
Virginia Slims, a cigarette line generally targeted to women as feminine, right, used an ad campaign in 1968 with the tagline, "You've come a long way, baby," essentially capitalizing on the successes of feminism, right?
Okay.
This ad campaign, this one in particular, was so successful, it resulted in a 2-fold increase in teenage female smoking.
Holy shit.
Okay, it's fine. We're not even at the bad part yet.
That's not the bad part?
That's not the bad part.
That's a pretty bad part, Olivia.
That's a pretty... It's not a great part.
Not
I'm
a
gonna
great
say.
part. Oh, no.
So, for the most part, when companies discussed marketing towards targeting, like, okay, when you think marketing towards like young adults and kids, what age range are you thinking?
Oh, I'm gonna shoot low, so I'm gonna say 10 to 15.
Wow, that's really fucking low. Okay, Bree?
I was gonna say 12 to 13.
Okay, so generally they mean, for the most part in the memos that I've read, anywhere from 14 to 18.
Oh,
Okay.
God, that's so much better than I thought, but it's still so bad.
However, there are documents that start as early as 12. So, like, I
so
really
my
want...
thing is-
14 is a freshman in high school.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, that's
12
insane.
is 7th grade.
Yeah, I know.
My question is, like, didn't they used to have like candy cigarettes?
Yes,
For
they did.
kids?
The ones where you puff
Yeah.
out smoke and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so isn't that...
That's fun games, but that's not the worst one.
Okay.
Everyone's bummed out. Yeah, I
boy.
really wanted to pick up the pace with the first part because this part we're gonna have to settle into it a little bit. Because the first part's the easy part.
Oh, super
So-
easy. Fun.
So it was really in the late 1970s when advertising to children ramped up because legislation made it very difficult to recruit adult smokers, right? Adult smokers were reading the news. They were very aware it's not good for them. There was a very big drop in smoking in 64 after the Surgeon Health General thing came out, right?
Okay. So
in order to maintain the industry, they had to recruit somewhere. And they found that somewhere is children. So market research found a sure foothold for the cigarette companies, and that was social influence and peer pressure. Yeah, you heard that right. They are going to manipulate kids through peer pressure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love the idea of just hurting people for money. But I don't know, when you're the dude who passed, when you're the CEO who said, let's market to children to give them cancer, like, I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, but you have to kill yourself.
I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, but you gotta go.
You gotta go.
You know, the one thing that I can say to this is, it's like that Steve Buscemi meme.
Hello, fellow kids.
Right? I guess. But it worked, didn't it, Olivia? It worked, right?
I feel sick to my stomach already.
Right.
Are you ready to hear how much it worked?
Absolutely not.
Well, we're gonna go anyway, bitch. So they found through research that flavor and experience was actually entirely secondary to young adults adopting a smoking habit. So they focused on social influence, right? You know, they thought initially, okay, well, are they gonna like it? Like, are they gonna enjoy the flavor? But then they're like, oh, no. All that matters is that people pressure them into it, right? And over time, more research showed that experience was way down there on the list of priorities because they started depending on the fact that they were going to get addicted to nicotine, right? They found a problem, right? Problem was it was very difficult to get people above the age of 16 to start smoking. And additionally, from a memo that I found from the Imperial Tobacco Company, they find and observe that the peak age for social pressures to be effective is the strongest at 11, 12, and 13 years old.
Fuck me.
That's 5th grade.
Oh my
That's 5th grade,
God.
right? And so they found that even if people are more likely to want to quit when they're older, the younger that they start, the strength of addiction is found to overcome the desire to quit, right? So cigarette companies have more than enough evidence to find that nicotine is highly addictive. So now they're like, oh, cool, this isn't an issue because they're going to get addicted no matter when they start. Here's an excerpt that is going to make you so mad from the Imperial Tobacco Company in 1982, right? Starters no longer disbelieve the dangers of smoking, but they almost universally assume these risks will not apply to themselves because they will not become addicted. Once addiction does take place, it becomes necessary for the smoker to make peace with the accepted hazards. This is done by a wide range of rationalizations. The desire to quit seems to come earlier now than before, even prior to the end of high school. In fact, it often seems to take hold as soon as the recent starter admits to himself that he is hooked on smoking. However, the desire to quit and actually carrying it out are two different things, as the would-be quitter soon learns. They're talking about kids.
Yeah.
They're talking about kids.
Kids pre-high school.
Previously, in 1971, cigarette ads were banned on televisions, right? That was one of the laws that was passed. Super great, right? But they had to find new marketing tactics to reach people. Their solution was to sponsor sports, art, and film. And one of the most important reasons they targeted sports was that they also found that one of the main reasons young adult smokers stopped smoking was because of the sports or like the impact smoking had on their performance, right?
Okay.
But the result of the sponsoring sports events, right, was that kids were most aware of the brands that associated themselves with sports, and it also made the brand appear fresh and exciting, right? So a study done in 1987 by Joe Ty, Kenneth Warner, and Stanton Glanz elucidated the desires of cigarette companies in advertising to kids. Approximately 60% of smokers start by the age of 13 and fully 90% before the age of 20. These statistics translate in the need for more than 5,000 children and teenagers to begin smoking every day to maintain the current size of the smoking population. Tobacco Advertising and Consumption, 1987. 5,000 a day.
Really good. Really good.
So to put that into perspective of like the pervasiveness of advertising in sports, it was reported in 1989 to the New England Journal of Medicine that in the 1989 Marlboro, that's never going to be easy. Marlboro Grand Prix in the U.S. In 1989,
right,
which was broadcast for 94 minutes. The Marlboro logo was seen or mentioned 5,933 times, so essentially 49% of the airtime.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't that insane?
Fucking sorry, that's insanity.
It also came out later in court that Philip Morris was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in contract deals to get film companies to feature their brands in movies such as Superman 2, James Bond License to Kill. So these weren't like expliciting marketing towards children, right? But it was attempts to rebrand themselves as hip and cool and keep their brand in the public eye at all times. So finally, the most damning example of marketing to children, Joe Camel.
As if it wasn't bad enough.
Joe Camel.
Fuck you, Joe Camel.
Joe Camel is a sharply dressed cartoon camel created by R.J. Reynolds. Oh, my bad. Okay, so R.J. Reynolds is Camel, and then Philip Morris is Marlboro.
Right.
Oh, okay.
My bad. So R.J. Reynolds to promote Camel cigarettes, and he was generally paired with the phrase smooth character. He was always illustrated in glamorous settings like Hollywood, Vegas, parties, surrounded by beautiful women. And while R.J. Reynolds vehemently argued that the advertisements were not targeted towards children, they definitely had that effect. Here's some statistics for you. In 1988, the U.S. Center for Disease found that the highest incidence in youth smoking between 1980 and 1988 is the year that Joe Camel is introduced. Additionally, in 1991, a study by the American Medical Association found that 30% of 3-year-olds and 91% of 6-year-olds knew that Joe Camel was connected with cigarettes, and said that Joe Camel was just as recognizable to children as Mickey Mouse. Any jokes, ladies and gents?
I mean, no. Actually, I do have one. Wasn't Joe Camel, like, didn't they come to find out his face looked like a dick?
I am immediately looking this up.
Isn't it like a tricky advertising trick that like
Joe Camel dick face?
I mean, he looks like a cartoon camel.
He does look like a dick face.
He looks like a cartoon camel because I know, like, I recognize him, like I can hear his name and see a picture in my head. I connect those two dots, which is scary. But
dick,
like,
right.
Apparently it's his like face looks like a phallic symbol.
No, it does look like a dick with balls for sure, 100%. I'm gonna show it to you,
Olivia.
I've seen it.
It does.
Look at it again.
I'm not kidding. I will send it to you right now. I have never thought of this before.
Oh my
but
god,
for sure.
Oh, it's so prominent.
It is.
It's so yeah. No, that's a penis.
Everybody, you have to look it up.
Levity of this situation. And again, while companies continue to argue time and time again that they were not marketing to children, but to pre-existing smokers to switch brands, despite the documentation that they'd been targeting children for decades, they insisted their advertisements were not intended to attract new smokers, especially children.
Sure.
But you cannot argue with a statistic from the U.S. Health and Human Services in 1994. The average age at which smokers try their first cigarette is 14 and a half years old, and approximately 70% of smokers become regular smokers by 18 years old.
God damn.
Their attitude towards youth smoking can best be surmised by the following quote. So a representative from sales for like R.J. Reynolds was questioning the ethical nature of selling cigarettes to kids. And he said, what is our target demographic here? Like 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds? And a representative from the company said, they got lips, we want them.
Uh-oh.
What the fuck? I wanted to make a pussy joke so bad, but I was just so shocked that I couldn't.
Bro.
Listen.
I was too depressed to make a pussy joke. I'm sorry, guys.
That's the state of the matter right now. It's rough.
Oh, fuck. Dude, that's...
It's bad. Okay, so between the 1950s and 1994, over 800 private lawsuits were filed against cigarette companies for all the reasons previously listed.
That's a lot. That's a lot
Tobacco
of lawsuits.
companies won how many of them?
All of them.
Not all of them.
I'm going to say 80%.
Okay. They won all except 2.
Fuck me!
If that doesn't show you the power of lawyers, I don't know what does.
O.J. Simpson.
That'll do it.
So here's from Anthony Colucci, a former R.J. Reynolds scientist. He actually worked in the mouse house and was fired. Right. This is his quote. I'm a scientist who says it's about time they quit this charade. I'm sick and tired of the way they distort and ignore the science. It's time for them to tell the truth. They had a responsibility early on to tell what their own researchers were finding out. Instead, they ignored it and made a mockery of it. I think it's time for the tobacco industry to say, this stuff kills people. We know that. Smoke at your own risk. 1992. So, here comes the law. In 1994, the first lawsuit led by Mississippi Attorney General Mike Moore sued tobacco companies for, quote, seeking monetary, equitable, and injunctive relief under various consumer protection antitrust laws. Right? So later, more than 40 states commenced in litigation. The idea was through negligent, and that is very generous, marketing, the companies knowingly contributed to increased incidence of tobacco-related diseases, which in turn had to be paid for citizens and healthcare costs, right?
That's fair, yeah.
So, as Moore declared, the lawsuit is premised on the simple notion, you caused the health crisis, you pay for it.
Right.
So, the lawsuits additionally sought recovery for Medicaid. Now, under oath, I want to remind you, under oath, U.S. tobacco executives from Brown & Williamson, Philip Morris, and R.J. Reynolds all state that they do not believe nicotine is addictive. In 1994.
Fuck off. That's fucking perjury.
It is perjury, and it is going to bite them in the ass. So justice is coming.
Thank God. Fuck, dude.
So on June 20th, 1997, Moore and other lawyers filed for government intervention to settle a lawsuit, including the conditions that the companies pay $365.5 billion, agree to regulations by the FDA, and agree to stronger warning labels and restrictions on advertising. This was called the 1997 National Settlement Proposal and then later changed to the 1998 trial. So this is the trial that really fucked them. Because this was initially, I was just going to do my entire thing on this trial until I found out that this wasn't just this trial. This was a trial for the past 50 years
of
their behavior, right?
Yeah.
So they lied on the stand, which is why they paid so harshly for it, right? They said in front of the entire U.S., if not the entire world, representatives from the Tobacco Institute and Philip Morris claimed that they don't believe that smoking caused cancer. 1998, okay?
Right,
so the companies lost big time, and they had to agree to the Multi-State Settlement Agreement, the MSA. This was a really big deal, right? However, was a little lenient on them. So the clause they initially had, the over $300 billion, about a third of it was going to be dedicated to reducing teenage smoking. That clause was eliminated in the new settlement. The amount of money they had to pay went from over $300 billion to $200 billion. The agreement involved action against the original participating manufacturers, the OPMs, so Philip Morris USA, Reynolds Tobacco, Brown and Williamson, and the Lorillard Tobacco Company.
Okay.
It also created trusts for farmers of tobacco growing states, right? Because they're going to get fucked. Those are just farmers who are trying to make money, right? So eventually paying them out for getting rid of their crop. It required the OPMs restrict their advertising, sponsorship, lobbying, and litigation activities, particularly those that were targeting youth. It included bans on billboards, transit vehicle advertisements, sports marketing and sponsorships. It disbanded 3 specific tobacco-related organizations, so I believe that was the Tobacco Research Institute and then the Tobacco Institute, which are 2 that I've mentioned. And then they also had to make available public documents that were disclosed during the discovery phase of the litigation. Pretty much everything they disclosed is what I have cited in here.
Yeah.
So, I really want to emphasize, all of what I said was not available to the public until 98.
Holy shit.
You couldn't find it. All of the stuff that I've been citing, all the stuff that I've been citing is, secret internal memos and, secret stuff inside the company. There were a couple of quotes of, public statements, but all of the public statements were denying, right? All of the stuff in private, which was not released to the public until 98, was the acknowledgement that they knew everything the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? They also had to create and fund the National Public Education Foundation, dedicated to reduce youth smoking and preventing diseases associated with smoking. So that's why when you see anti-tobacco ads, anti-tobacco stuff, the cigarette companies actually have to pay for that. So they have to pay a certain amount every year on anti-smoking campaigns, as a result of them lying on the stand and lying to the public for years. Which is so weird and interesting that they're paying to tell people to stop smoking. So the only update to this law was in 2009 during the Obama administration. It was called the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act.
Okay.
So this banned flavored cigarettes, bans marketing to youth, required all new tobacco products must be approved by the FDA, because previously it was not regulated by the FDA. It was after the 98 trial, but previous to that, it was not regulated by the FDA. Required cigarette companies to disclose all ingredients. So all ingredients were disclosed in 2009, right? Crazy. And then it banned them from using words like light and ultralight to give the impression that some tobacco products had a lower health risk. Again, there's no such thing as a safe cigarette.
Right.
That was declared by this U.S. Health Surgeon General in 81. So I think it's crazy that we had to wait until 2009 for that to happen, but whatever, that's just me mumbling.
It's 100 years between them finding out that it causes cancer and something being actually physically done about it.
Yeah.
I need a nap.
So, however, the downside to the 2009 bill is it grandfathered in tobacco products marketed before 2007. And it erected nearly impassable financial and regulatory barriers for the introduction of competing products to the U.S. And that seems like a good idea, right? You don't want more stuff on the market, but essentially, I believe the statistic was at the time of the 98 trial, the OPMs controlled 97% of the U.S.'s tobacco.
Right.
So what essentially you created a monopoly with 5 companies controlling all the tobacco stuff in the U.S.
Sure.
Which is bad. So now here's the bummer time. This is current statistics.
Here's
right?
the bummer time, guys.
Here's the bummer.
Because all the stuff was in the past, and you're mad, and you're well, it's shitty, and there's
All the
nothing
stuff
to
was in
do
the
about it.
past.
But this part is the new stuff that's currently happening.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So tobacco companies have not been stopped, right? Their market has actually expanded, right?
Really
They
good.
specifically target developing countries. So, for example, in 1911, the Chinese smoked 7.5 billion cigarettes. By 2012, the figure had risen to 2.4 trillion cigarettes.
Okay.
Asia is actually a huge target for tobacco companies, and that was documented as early as the 80s, when they saw that there was going to be legislative issues in the U.S., right, with all the new laws that were coming out. They realized they were going to have to do something to continue to sell cigarettes. So an ex-employee was actually quoted after he stopped working at the company. He said, They have to find a way to feed the monsters they've built. Just about the only way will be to increase sales to the developing world. And he said that in 1998, right? So the market has clearly exploded from then. And one of the grossest things that I read in regards to the health concerns from these countries is from a marketing exec, again, in 1998. This one just
every time she sighs
disgusting.
Before she says something, I just, oh, God.
Okay, ready?
No.
The average life expectancy here is about 40 years. Infant mortality is high. The health problems which some say are caused by cigarettes won't figure as much a problem here.
Oh my God.
So they literally are betting on the low life expectancy.
You're gonna die anyway, just smoke while you can.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
So essentially, we don't need to worry about them because they're gonna die. And so, I forgot about another disgusting quote. So one former representative for a cigarette marketing firm said this in 1988 when he was asked about the trouble in marketing to youths, right? He said this: "The problem is how do you sell death? How do you sell a poison that kills 350,000 people here per year, 1,000 people per day?" Fritz Gallahan, 1988. So their solution is to sell to other people, right?
Right.
How do you sell death? Like, isn't that crazy that he admits that?
That sounds like an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. Like, honestly, that's insane.
So, I'm sorry, I'm literally speechless.
I know! Isn't this fucking insane? I'm losing my fucking mind! I'm losing my mind. Oh my god, I have more statistics.
How did we get this far?
So based on the data, tobacco will kill approximately 10 million people every year worldwide by 2020. 70% of these deaths will occur in less developed and emerging nations. Why? Why now? Why like this, Brie? So
she gets uncomfortable with sad things.
I really do.
So here's like statistics on like US stuff in particular, just for like to summarize cigarettes, right? This is all we know now. And after everything's been released, after all the studies have been done, again, none of this was available to the public. Like, you had independent research that was being done, but then like directly the cigarette like there's a difference between like misleading and saying maybe not or like we'll look into it, and then saying directly to the public under oath, we do not believe nicotine is addictive. Like, that's perjury.
That's
right?
a bold-faced lie, yeah.
Which is insane to me, because you see companies all the time like slip around stuff and like try not to admit stuff, but like I've never seen a company this blatantly lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, according to the International Anti-Cancer Institute, of the more than 7,000 chemicals in tobacco smoke, at least 250 are known to be harmful, including hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, and ammonia. And then among the 250 that are known to be harmful, 69 can cause cancer. So Bree said earlier, like, she died of heart disease. Smoking harms nearly every organ in the body. So smoking has been proven to cause cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung diseases, diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. It also increases the risk for tuberculosis, certain eye diseases, and problems of the immune system, including rheumatoid arthritis. And it is also a known cause of erectile dysfunction in males. No jokes.
Don't smoke,
No
kids.
jokes.
Well,
Don't smoke.
I mean, I was gonna say, and that's the worst of them all. Right?
I knew you were gonna make that joke. I fucking know you.
Brie, please.
God damn it, Brie.
Please.
I mean, like, the other ones, at least you're dying, but you can get it up. Am I right, ladies?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Brianna.
I'm joking. Purely a bit.
We're gonna get some letters.
So smoking is the single largest cause of preventable death and disease in the United States.
I knew that, yeah.
480,000 deaths per year, including more than 41,000 deaths resulting from secondhand smoke. So this is about 1 in 5 deaths annually, or 1,300 deaths every day. Pets living in homes with secondhand cigarette smoke are 2 times more likely to die from cancer. In 2016, $9.5 billion was spent on advertising and the promotion of cigarettes and smokeless tobacco combined. So it's about 26 million every day and more than 1 million every hour. Here comes the racism part.
Oh my boy.
So, race demographics, the big ones, 31.8% of American Indian and Alaska Natives smoke. It's about equal with black and white people, about 16%. I believe like 24 is mixed race, right? As for education, 24.1 people who have less than a high school education smoke, while 40.6% of people with only a GED smoke, and it decreases significantly from there.
Sure.
People below the poverty level, about 24.3% of people below the poverty level smoke, and then at or above is about 14.3%. So this parallels a quote by an actor who was in R.J. Reynolds ads. They asked him in an interview, "Do you smoke cigarettes?" His response was, "We don't smoke that shit. We just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid." 1992.
Jesus Christ.
92?
92.
Oh my god.
Really, really classy
And like,
stuff.
I was gonna talk about vapes, which was a massive fucking loophole for them to market nicotine, and it's largely unregulated. I wanted to talk about marijuana, which most of these cigarette companies have started putting money into. Like,
makes sense.
And that's just, it's got to be another episode, because I didn't anticipate that most of it would be just events happening from like 54 to 1998. Like, I didn't realize how big this was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember hearing about it in health, and they're like, they lied on the stands, and it's bad for you. And you're like, of course it's bad for us, because we know. But, like, I, like, didn't realize, like, how...
Would you potentially want to do a 2-parter?
Like, I would want to do, like, some of the other stuff that I read. Like, I would love to do, like, another one on that. This today is all I can do. I can't read anymore about this. I'm going to lose I read a 78-page legal document.
You've done
that was
enough.
just quotes from the cigarette companies. And, like, I said it, like, almost every single time that cigarette companies, like, denied it. But, like, I really, 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 really want to emphasize, like, had evidence that nicotine was addictive said directly to the public, we don't believe it's addictive. Had evidence that smoking caused cancer said directly to the public, they don't believe it causes cancer, or there's no evidence to show that it does. Said they would never market to children, have evidence for decades that they were explicitly marketing to children. I couldn't even get into the stuff they were specifically marketing towards black people. There was an incident in the 70s where they sent representatives to hand out free cigarette samples in, like, black neighborhoods. Like, hugely took advantage of the poor. I kind of got into the stuff about developing nations, just to wrap it up, like, that's their new market. But, like, it just goes so deep. There's so much. Like, and I could only focus on the stuff that happened in the US, but, like, fuck, dude. Like, there's so much happening in this story, and I didn't realize it was that big. I'm so tired.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to be doing another cover-ups episode sometime in the future.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my god.
This is, it's a lot deeper than I originally thought it was. Because, that, like, when you first mentioned that you were doing the topic today, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be some shit. But it really fucking is, ain't it?
It's more than some shit. It is all shit. That's all it is.
Like, the primary quotes are what, like, fucking killed me, right?
Yeah.
Like, because basically, essentially, all I read was the primary quotes. Like, the quotes from the executives that says, oh, we have a clear issue here in that peer pressure tapers off at 16, but it's at its optimal time at 11, 12, and 13.
Yeah, let's just
and you're like,
market to them.
A human being said that.
Yeah.
Like, a human being wrote that on a piece of paper.
Like,
you know what I mean?
The quotes are what was so damning. Like, earlier I was saying that, like there has to be a sort of corporate mentality where these people believe the shit that they're selling, but no, it's just pure evil. Like, they know that what they're doing is wrong. They know that they're actively killing people, and then lie about it because they know that it's wrong. Like, it's evil.
They're doing it for their own gain, their own greed, their own whatever.
It's shocking to me that I had more sympathy towards cults.
The fucking Westboro Baptist Church. Like,
I literally felt feelings for the Westboro Baptist Church, and all I feel is anger. Because it's one thing if you're grown up in a world where you want to hate and you want to hurt.
Yeah.
It's another thing to grow up and make the decision to market to kids.
And also to profit off of cancer and death.
And it's weird to me, like, I tried really hard to give the benefit of the doubt, because I felt like if I came at it just with the vision of these people are evil, I wasn't going to get the full story, you know what I mean?
Right, sure.
And, like, pretty much because I had to skip so many quotes, but, like, every quote that was from an ex-employee, ex-executive, ex-representative, all of them had horrible, horrible things to say. Like, those were the people that were like, how do you market death? The people that were like, we've known for years that this causes cancer. So, like, obviously they knew enough to, like, get out. And then for the scientists, I just feel fucking bad, because a lot of them thought that they were researching it and they were putting an effort to make a safe cigarette. And you're like, hey, we're making good headway on this. And they're like, oh, but you know what? If we ever release that, though, yeah, maybe it'll be healthier, but then we're implying that the other stuff is not unhealthy, so we're going to fire you after decades worth of work. Like,
and then they just scrapped that research. It was all for nothing.
Right? And, like, the guy, like, Kalushi, he had some other quotes in that document where he was like, yeah, we just came in and, like, project was terminated. We thought we were making very good work at finding, like, a causal link. And, like, as soon as we did, we were no longer useful. They were demanding for years to release the evidence, but, you know, you have a confidentiality agreement. You'd never be able to work in research again if you ever broke that agreement. So, like, to that degree, it's got to be rough, but, like, and I don't know. And then I don't know how much I could be angry at lawyers, because they literally just go to a lawyer and they're like, we're paying you millions of dollars a year to make sure that we don't go to jail. Like, how much can I hate a lawyer for being a lawyer? But, like, the executives, I don't know, because then they also have families, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like,
you gotta support
layers. Yourself.
And you know what? There's a lot of layers, and that's what keeps me up at night. Am I right?
Oh, God. Roll credits.
I haven't slept well in, like, a week.
Oh,
this is so bad.
You're a champion. You're a fighter.
I'm sweating.
Yeah, same. So this is what we're gonna be doing for the next 2 weeks, right? Just cover-ups in general?
We're doing cover-ups.
I think this is going to be the one that breaks us.
Yeah, honestly, like, none of our topics are happy. But when you came at us today with, hey guys, maybe you should watch something, like, lighthearted and funny before we do our recording today, I was like, this woman is broken. She's lost her will.
I started laughing.
Yeah, right?
And we started off with communist China. Like, this is something else.
We started off with genocide.
Imagine what it's going to be like episode 100. We're going to be making a special. All of us are just, like, fucking, like, we suffer from insomnia at this point. Our eyes are bloodshot. We're like, okay, you guys, and today we're going to talk about, I don't know, just mass genocide in general, I guess, but let's dive in. Oh god. So yeah, but, like, what are the criteria for what we're going to be talking about the next 2 weeks here?
So our topic for the next, I guess, 2 more weeks, because we have Bree and Brooke,
right,
is going to be government or corporate cover-ups and conspiracies. So my cover-up was that this group of corporations knew for close to 100 years that they were killing people, and they did it anyway. That was my cover-up. So they're going to pick 2 cover-ups that just symbolize greed and corruption and just callousness for human life.
Which will be tons of fun.
I'm a broken person.
Oh, Olivia.
I
have mine's gonna be depressing.
I guess, like, I'll wrap it up with the thing that keeps me up at night is just, like, this wasn't a small group of people. Like, you know, with the cults, like, Westboro Baptist Church is, like, literally 60 people, right? 60, small, in the grand scheme of things, is not gonna fucking do anything, you know what I mean? This is thousands of people that, as a group, got together and just agreed to do this, and, like, I'm just mad because if you were complicit, you agreed to do this by being complicit, right? Like,
right, of course.
Maybe you came out later, like, you, in court, you're like, this is fucked up, and we know, like, everyone's effort made this take 100 years to happen.
Yeah.
Right? And this is 98. People who didn't realize how fucked up this were, who were smoking at the time, like, if they were 18 when this happened, they're in their 30s now. Like,
yeah.
You know, it's kind of too late. Like, smoking any cigarettes is not good for you. If you've been smoking for a long time, like, that's just...
I do want to say that if you do quit, if you smoke now and you've been trying to quit, but you feel like, oh, whatever, it's been 10 years, 20 years, it's too late.
Do it.
I have heard, and I want to back this up, but, like, I've heard that if you quit, that it takes about 5 years or so, and your lungs can pretty much fully regenerate if you're not already ill.
Yes, it is literally, it is never too late. It is never too late to stop smoking.
Quit.
And, like, also, the statistics that I remember from, like, and mind you, these are older statistics, this is all, like, the 90s. It was found, and it was evidence that anywhere from 70 to 80% of all smokers want to quit, but around 10%, if not less than that, are able to quit of their own volition.
Oh, it's hard. It's so hard.
It is so hard.
Dude,
so,
get friends. Don't do it by yourself because you will not be able to do it.
Get the tobacco aid, like, you know, chewing on the nicotine gum to ebb yourself off. Like, don't feel bad. This is literally a product that has been marketed and designed to be addictive.
This is,
right?
And, you know, also going off of that, if you don't even want to quit for your own health, quit for the fucked up history of it all, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you want to support
don't
these
give them
people?
money.
No way.
Don't give them money.
They're killing
Fuck
kids,
these
dudes.
people. Fuck these people, dude.
Yeah.
I think the thing that keeps me up at night the most is again, like, because we've talked about a lot of fucked up stuff, right? And I think one of the things that we talked about the most is, like, power. And just the abuse of it, and the abuse of a situation, and the abuse of other people. And it's like with cults, you know, like you said, that was a small group of people. Like, we talked about mass genocide before, so I mean, I feel like that's not such on a small scale, but, like, people are in the present day saying, I completely understand what these things do, how they cause death. Let's not only profit off of this, but also let's gear it towards children.
Yeah.
And let's gear it towards, like, people who are not from this, like, and it's just, I don't know. I feel it's just it's fucked up. It's fucked up for you to sit there and be okay with that. Like, be a millionaire and something else.
How do you sell death? Is a quote like that itself is gonna keep me up at night.
Yeah, that haunts me. And, like, it's always the kids that just gets me. That these people take advantage of impressionable young people, prey on their insecurity.
Imagine, like, the fact that the camel was more recognizable than Mickey Mouse.
I don't know if that's still true today. But just the fact that it was is just terrifying.
Yeah,
no, Disney
like,
is its own thing.
We got it showed to us. Actually, Joe Camel, like, after the company's required to pay for anti-smoking ads, which they to this day still have to do. Good. I think forever they're gonna have to pay for anti-smoking ads. There's, like, a picture called Joe Chemo that I'll post on the Instagram, and it's Joe Camel getting chemo. Fuck, dude. Like, it's just, all of it's fucked up. All of it makes me angry. And I just hope that when you hear this, you learn something a little new, and I hope it keeps you up at night.
Stop smoking.
Stop smoking. Please. Don't support them.
Do you want to do a quick little...
On a lighter note, if you could give us a review...
The really important shit. Oh, God.
Please give us a review on iTunes if you didn't like what we were talking about, but you like how we presented it. We'd really really appreciate if you could.
Yeah. We've gotten some pretty good responses so far. We're officially a 5-star podcast on iTunes, so that's pretty cool.
I'm so happy. Yeah. Also, we have officially, as of today, 200 downloads.
What up, kids?
I know. It makes us
exciting.
Literally, our hearts are filled with joy. Even
The
if
fact that
filled
anybody's
with
listening at
sadness.
all is incredible.
That's
Hello.
insane.
Yeah, oops, my B, I've been sitting on the statistics for, like, all of the episodes, and, like, one day I was like, by the way, did I tell you guys how well we're doing? And then I sent them a picture, and they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, ooh, my
I
bad.
was excited.
I'm
I
like,
did not
maybe my
think-
grandma listens, you know?
Ooh, I hope your grandma doesn't listen.
Oh, no,
I
she doesn't
also-
anymore.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But yeah, if you could give us a review on like whatever platform you're listening on, especially iTunes, it like really helps us up with like business. It promotes us. Basically, the more reviews we have, really appreciate it. Preferably a 5-star review, but I'm not the boss of you.
That would be great. Thank you.
What's our Instagram and Twitter, Olivia?
Okay, well, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter on TTKMeUp. And then on both of those, it'll link us to our individual accounts. We have like 1 million accounts, so I just didn't want to fucking list them.
Right.
We post updates about the show. We post little teasers. Super fun, super cute. Yeah, thank you for listening in. Thank you for supporting us. Like, we're so appreciative that people are listening. Like, we really can't, like, overstate that. Thank you so much for listening in. It makes us feel very squishy and warm. And it makes it all worth it, knowing that at least, you know, people other than my mom are gonna listen in and give me support. My mom doesn't listen to this. She'd never fucking listen to this. But thank you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And hopefully
All right.
we can also keep you up at night.
Yeah. Suffer with us, please.
It's been real.
It has.
It's
See ya.
been real. Deuces.
Bye.